One last thing that I wanted to show you. I'll use the coffee cup illustration that I have used before. Is the warp tools, and I call them warp tools, but there's really a bunch of them here. There's the warp, the twirl, the pucker, the bloat, the scallop, the crystalline, and the wrinkle tool. They're hidden there under the width tool. Remember the width tool? Width tool is a way to make stroke objects have a varying width. We actually used it on this coffee cup. If you look in outline view, that big fat area there was done with the width tool. It's just a single path, but we made it fat. Same way over here and all the way around. That's all done with the width tool. Okay. For this, I'm actually going to use the little tear off. Remember we talked about this, where you can make a kind of a supplementary toolbox, because if you want to change between these quickly, you can just go up here and do that real quick, instead of maybe coming back over here. There is an advantage to using the original toolbox. If you double click, let me switch to a different tool here. Double click, you get this warp tool, the warp tool options that come up. If you change to the twirl tool and double click, you get some information about the twirl tool. You can change the settings. You can change the width of the brush that you're using. You can maybe get some other information here about using the option key and other things. Okay, so don't think you can do the same thing from up here. Actually, it looks like you can. Let me just double check that. Yep, looks like you can. Okay, so your supplementary toolbox works too for that. Okay, let's look at the warp tool here first. I'll select this object, and I'll use this warp tool on it, and what it does is it kind of pushes the boundaries of the paths around. So I'm just moving from outside in to change that. You can also start from the inside and push out, and it'll move objects this way. Okay, so you can make your coffee cup have a kind of a bloated sort of look to it, or a almost liquid kind of look to it. It reminds me of like images done in like by artists like Salvador Dali, that did a lot of those sort of plastic looking watches and things. Okay, that's the warp tool. Okay, and again, double click and you can get other options there. Change the angle, change the intensity. I do sometimes change the intensity just because things sometimes work too fast, and that is true with the next tool called the twirl tool. What it does is it just takes selected objects and moves them in a twirl kind of fashion like you see there. I'm just going to undo those and kind of zoom in. And if you want your twirl tool to function at a different rate, just double click and you can turn down the intensity. You can turn down the twirl rate here so that it's slower. You can even turn it so it's a negative number, and then it'll twirl in the opposite direction and move things around this way. So if you change the size of your brush, it activates just a smaller area. You can change that here, I believe. I just use the down. Okay, so now I've got a then there's settings for both horizontal and vertical. You can get an elliptical shaped brush, obviously, and get it to twirl in some strange kind of ways with an elliptical brush. You can set this so that they're the same. And now back to a round brush. You can see how that moves. I actually used that on this illustration that you see out here for these little shapes on this drawing. Okay, I'm going to undo. So I'm back to my regular coffee cup. Okay, got my coffee cup selected. I'll use the next one, the pucker tool. Pucker tool kind of draws anchor points towards it. Kind of pinches it, kind of makes it look sort of pinched in like that. And the active area is inside the brush there. And so you can see how that's working. When there's nothing inside the brush, nothing happens. If I put it inside the brush now, it draws those anchor points towards the middle. Okay. And it creates new anchor points. A lot of these functions that I'm showing you right here are they do increase the file size, just because they also increase the number of anchor points that you make. I'm going to undo some of these things. So I'm kind of back to my original drawing. And look at the next one. That's the bloat tool. Bloat tool pushes image away from the brush. You can see how it does that. That is might find some real practical use for these tools. I'm just kind of messing around, but you can also click and drag and push this shape out, okay, or push it back in. Okay, so it does have some nice or practical uses there. Really changes the look of the object. Okay, I'll undo that. Okay, and a couple more undos here. Get it back to where it was. Okay, there is a scallop tool that kind of wrinkles the edge of these shapes. You got to have it selected. So I'll select it. You can see it kind of adding some anchor points there and changing the appearance of that cup quite dramatically. Okay, undo that. I keep using the wrong keyboard shortcut for my undos here. It's just a straight Command Z or Shift Command Z. There's a crystalline tool that does a kind of the opposite of the scallop tool. It pushes the points away from the center. That's a really nice looking, can be a really nice looking effect. Okay, and the wrinkle tool is the last one here. I kind of like it. It's more of a slow type of thing, and it just kind of adds a little bumpy kind of quality to a path. You can see it sort of taking its effect on that. It adds anchor points, definitely makes your files bigger. It does some nice little softening kind of things that I like, because it looks almost like you did it like with a hand drawing. I'm going to take off some of those things and use my wrinkle tool again. With the wrinkle tool, you can see that. Okay. Double click on the icon to make any changes. If you want to change the detail, if you want to add more, if you want to change the intensity, whatever you like. There's a reset button in this panel, so you can reset all of these back to their original preset. And now I've got a bigger brush. Okay, so that's those warp tools. Remember, they're there under the width tool.